additional trust by showing your associates respect and showing a genuine interest in what they care about, you can give a voice to 100% of your associates. You can lay out the minefield by knowing what they care about, what motivates them, what they hate, what upsets them. You can lay out the minefield, you can map it, you know where to step, what not to step, and you can find meaningful, quick wins to implement for them and help begin to build that long and lasting trust that you want so that you can get that true engagement.
And what happens is, when you link all those together, you get true north. True north tells the organization where it's going. Most organizations talk about innovation, success, evaluation, development of people, growth, solutions to solve problems, progress, marketing their product. But in the end, it's about teamwork. How do you link the entire organization? From the janitor to the CEO, everyone has a primary role to impact change. It's cultural behaviors. I tell people, I'm not your boss. I'm a leader. Don't call me Mr. My name is Billy. It's not Sir. Okay, it's not Mr. By doing so, every Saturday morning, the janitor and I have a big conversation over a cup of coffee. His last statement to me Saturday was, Billy, I'm not a janitor. I'm the general of keeping all the floors clean in this plant. That's my role. And he's proud of it. When you look at a real-life example, it's what I want to get into our journey here. And recently we went through what's called throughput optimization, linking our organization. And what's happened here has been mind-blowing, the results. What's happening from a cost perspective, what's happening from a performance and delivery and a quality perspective. We are not driving it as the leaders. The people on the floor are driving it. It's moving at a warp speed, and we can't keep up. If you look at our organization, just to give you a view, we're a union facility, and we have approximately 2,800 people that work here. And the end product is tires. The right tires to the market, making more of the right tires. When you look at traditional union facility, here's what you get. Us and a them. And then the line is right down the middle. With the us and them mentality, you get lack of trust, lack of accountability. Just to name a few. Entitlement versus engagement. Entitlement. I tell you. We put charts on the board that people walk by all day long. You tell me means I move that performance standards to your machine, make you the CEO of your machine, and then you tell me as I walk by, what are you doing to drive change? It's all behavioral based. Those tools, they're behavioral based. We'll talk later on about our CI meeting that we have. We adapted from the military. We engage people. We sit on the front line, basically to cheer, to get an understanding, and let them teach us and drive change. The mirror. What do you see? What you see is not reality in most cases. It's what you think. If you look at the real reality check, now the baby, there's a pretty baby. Now the next slide, we're going to move in what we talk about in our plant. As a leader, I often challenge my team, don't treat me like the mother in the grocery store with the little baby carriage. We walk up to the carriage and walk in and we say, oh, it's so cute, it's so precious, only to walk away and say something totally different. Well, we tell our team to walk up to me, look in the baby carriage, and tell the truth. Man, you got an ugly baby. At that point, I love the baby. It's mine. I own it. I must embrace it. I must embrace reality. So what we thought was happening in the plant wasn't happening at all. Here's what the people told us. Here were our ugly babies. Well, there's little or no trust. Just to name a few. There's some favoritism out there. Us versus them, it's high, it's present. The union, we started fighting. We quit the fighting. We took the line off the road and made it one highway, true north. And at that point, things started to change. So we did what's called a mirror exercise. But before we went to the mirror exercise, we went out to see what reality was. And here's what we saw. Our work environment, machines weren't predictable. People generally had a good attitude. They wanted to succeed. They wanted to do well, but we weren't tapping into that resource. Our equipment, unreliable, unkept. Roles and responsibility, they weren't clearly defined. And there was a lack of meeting structure to give people true feedback on performance, not only the bad, but the good as well. Here's another area we went out. Overwhelming. There was so much going on in this area. It was total chaos. Again, the team wanted to do well, and you see that group, they're working feverishly, they're working hard to make change and impact change, but we weren't listening to their suggestions. We weren't embracing their feedback. They are the true experts. They are the ones driving change. Again, we found again in another area, unkept equipment. Roles and responsibility, they weren't clearly defined, and there was a lack of meeting structure to provide feedback to the team. So what we did, we created a mirror workshop. It's a gallery. You walk through this gallery in their station. There's posters displaying feedback on what we think reality is, and then we'll allow people to document what they see reality is, their interaction, their perspective. The mirror gallery forces participants to look in the mirror and own the findings in personally meaningful way. So they can say anything about my leadership, the leadership of their direct supervisor, the support they're getting or not getting. We even found that they felt we weren't supporting their manager. And that's why their performance was struggling. But it's a non-threatening environment. Okay? We do not retaliate. There's no names associated. We embrace the feedback. And in some cases, it was very painful. Here's just one. What's in the mirror? We talk about first in, first out. We weren't even using the system. That's the behavior. The tool and system was present, but we were not using them. Our locker rooms, we weren't addressing their needs. The biggest one we found that will come on the next sheet is it was a restroom. For 20 years, they had to walk. It was almost 600 meters to use the restroom. We put the restroom in, morale just jumped. People were excited about it, the fact that we were listening. This is just a picture of a lady going through the mirror exercise. As you can see, they can write their suggestions on what we can do to build trust from their perspective. It's real time, real live feedback, and we have to go back and post our actions so that they can see them and show them that we're making a difference. We're listening to them. Actually, we're transferring ownership, addressing the mindsets and behaviors, improving the environment of the workforce. In the end, not only did we find those things that were hidden, we talked about what they thought and what they felt, what were their values. We had a better understanding of their needs, and we started addressing those things. They were hidden that we did not capture in the beginning. And it started to change our culture. And at that point, production started to improve, costs started to go down, quality improved, but the biggest gain was morale. Morale. People enjoyed coming to work. People come in. I have record open doors now. The environment is such that we're just scratching the surface on where we're going to go. There is no finish line when it comes to continuous improvement. What we're understanding is tapping into the most valuable resource are the people. So now we talk about closing the gap, operator performance dialogue, sharing the expectations. Now that we've captured the hearts and the minds, and now the behaviors are coming. People are joining in. They want to be productive. And we'll show you a chart later on as the engagement in our CI process. I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie, and she's going to talk about closing the gap.
So with the mirror workshop, we heard the voice of our people, and we learned what they care about, what they feel, what they think about us. But what feedback have we been giving them? Up to this point, well, the knuckleheads knew that we thought they were a problem, and the high achievers, we found ways to recognize them and tell them, hey, you're the best, you're awesome. But the rest of those folks, they didn't know what we wanted, and they certainly didn't know how they were doing, if they were doing well or not. So the challenge was, how do we connect more effectively with all of them? What we came up with, and what you can develop for yourself, is a positive performance dialogue. No discipline is allowed when the area manager has this conversation with their associate. They take them off the floor to a private place, And for each of our core objectives, like safety, quality, cost, and delivery, we have a sheet, something like this, when the example quality is up on the screen. And on the left is our expectations for greatness. On the right is probably, in some cases, the reality, and it's definitely not acceptable. And what we do is we walk the associate through this in a non-threatening way. We just say, hey, you're responsible for your own quality. Where do you place yourself on this continuum? And we have them, for each line item, we have them circle where they think they are. Then we have a meaningful conversation. Hey, I agree. I think you're wonderful. Or maybe not. This doesn't, I understand how you feel, but this doesn't line up with what I see. The bottom line question at the end of each section when the associate is done is the area manager asks them, what can I do to help you get better? How can I help you? It is not about punishment. It's not about discipline. It's about understanding each other, understanding the expectations, and finding ways that we can help our associates get better. So what does that get us? Well, this is from one of the TOP, one of the throughput optimization exercises. And what we got from the Miro workshop and from answering their concerns and giving them feedback is we gained a 29% increase in output in 6 weeks, to the point where we actually shut the machine down sometimes. If you see that burgundy bar on the far right drop down, we filled the Kanban. We had to shut down the machine. We did TPM. We did cleaning. We did training. We did meetings. In 6 weeks, we gained 29% increase in output just from listening to the people and addressing what they cared about.
And what that means is two ways. What you saw earlier was the fact that here's what they tell us about our performance, and here's what we tell them about their performance. And it's a non-threatening environment. The key stakeholders, face-to-face, side-by-side. Time is always well spent. Engaging the workforce is critical to sustainability. I'm in the middle of that picture. You can't tell who's the leader and who's the shop worker because we're all leading change. There's a unity there amongst the entire team to drive change. Here's our CI process. Since we started engaging our workforce, in 2010 we embarked on this journey, and we use a military format. You do one project, you get a bronze medal and a t-shirt. 2 projects, you get a little silver pin. They're like lapel pins. 3 projects, you get a gold pin. If you do 12 projects, you get your platinum pin. Through 1 month, we've already had 6 platinum award winners. But look at the participation. In 2010, average of 31 people participated in a month. In 2011, we had a significant improvement to 262. This year, we've almost doubled again in participation. We've had to move to 2 meetings, and now the room is budging at the seals. People are trying to get in and make their presentation to show us that the importance of engaging them and their behaviors. Their behaviors toward continuous improvement has truly changed, and it was not driven by us as leaders of the staff. It's driven from the floor up. People are embracing change. Just some pictures before. This is before we really got engaged and get people engaged to change. This happened last month. So these are not dated pictures. Here's what it looked like before engagement, after engagement. This is just not 5S. There's TPM involved. There's different system changes, different cultural changes, a shift in ownership, terminals that went up that let them run their own business. They became their own manager or self-managed. In the end, here's what's happened as we've engaged people. When we started this journey, this is just hours work just to give you a scope. You should work 14,343 hours a day to make 34,000 tires. In January, we made 38,000 tires, and we only worked 13,642 hours. As you ride that down this drive and change, this is just some areas. We're in our mix area. Our baseline was batches per day. Again, 7.7% improvement. And now, as Kerry talked about, we're idling equipment because the quality of our product, the yield, the throughput has improved, so we've created headroom. We're idling equipment doing TPMs, other continuous improvement activities. Quality. Look at our slow moving. This is a material that's at a standstill, sitting on the floor. It's a hidden factory, valued at over $3 million. Again, we're driving it down. We're impacting the quality, and the people are putting the systems in. Ship stock. We used to purchase stock to run our facility from a third-party vendor. Again, $1 million in savings per month that we don't have to purchase anymore from an outside vendor. In the end, by addressing the mindsets and behaviors of our organization, we become one organization. This is our CEO. The pursuit for a strong relationship never ends. Mindsets and behaviors truly change an organization for the good. People embrace their organization, and they lead change, and at the end of the day, it's a people's business. It's not a manufacturing business for us. At this point, I'll answer any questions that anyone may have.
All right, Billy. It looks like so far there was a couple questions that were typed in. David Wiss had a couple of them. One of them was, how long did the transformation take?
Overwhelming, the overall organizational transformation, when we first started this journey, we had 3 months, and it took hold. And the change, the engagement, involvement of the people, it exceeded our expectations. And at that point, we had to figure how do we sustain and grow the organization. So at that point, we went to the CI meetings. We came up with a different structure to capture the engagement. And now we're embarking on throughput optimization and standard work around throughput optimization. And now it's continuing to improve. Month over month, we continue to get better.
Okay. His second question was, what was the one activity done that made that cultural shift?
I started with, we had these, you see the T-shirts you have there? At that point, we were running 31,000 tires a day. And it was swarming intelligence, as Kerry talked about. Getting everybody on board, the emotional intelligence piece, to understand what was true north. So at this point, we need to get to 38,000 tires a day. The market demand at that point was right around 37, and we were running 31,000 tires a day. We coined this jersey, a common theme, and we gave everybody in the plant a jersey. I think 2,800 people, a custom jersey. On the front of the jersey, it has our team name, Fayetteville. On each sleeve, we adopted a theme like a professional sport. U.S. Steel Workers was on one sleeve. That is the player representative. And Goodyear was on the other sleeve. That's the team you play for. On the back of that jersey, it had the choice. We wanted to be the choice of the customer, the choice of an associate that works here, and the choice of our community. So we crafted a common theme, a common message, and we went out there and we mass communicated, and we got buy-in from the people. They designed the jersey. We didn't design the jersey. And then at that point, we kept pushing the theme. And then operational excellence, at that point, that was the focus. And then we had roundtables. Every day, I had a meeting at 6:15 and 2:15. We brought in 25 people in each session. And this was 5 days a week. And every 10 days, I was face-to-face with 500 people. They could ask me anything they wanted to ask, to dispel rumors, to address their concerns, to give them real live feedback face-to-face. And at that point, the trust started to come. And it was critical that I live the creed. Basically, what I said, I did.
Awesome. Thank you. Next one was there any turnover in terms of leadership team leaving or changing, and how did you approach that?
Yes, it was. There was some good change, and there was some change where people had to exit the team. They weren't a good fit for where we were going. but it wasn't a maximum amount of change. Some key figures on my leadership team turned over, and some went in different roles and had different responsibilities that played to their strength. And some, this just wasn't an environment conducive for them, which at some point it was threatening the organization's success. And so we call it critical conversation.
Excellent. What was the driving force behind starting this? Was it a corporate program?
No, it's survival. At one point, and I say that mildly. When I say survival, I'm kind of kidding. Upon coming to Fayetteville, there were some challenges there. And when I first came to the plant, I assessed the organization, and initially I thought we had bad people. But you know what? As Kerry talked about, that 80%, I had a real strong, positive workforce, but we weren't tapping into their true potential. We weren't linking to the organization and the core and the nucleus of the organization, which was at 80%. They wanted to do very well. And I take that 80%, and with that other 10% that's out there, I had 90% of the organization wanted to do well. But we were a struggling organization. We were a high-cost organization, and we were an unreliable supplier. And at that point, your survival in this global economy was yet a high risk of failure and a low risk of surviving, thus you would run out of a job. And we just brought the facts to the union. And just one of the things, I meet with the union. I met with them this morning. Every Tuesday, I meet with the union president, vice president, with my HR manager. Every Wednesday, their entire union staff comes in with my entire staff, and we put the issues on the table. We call it funeral talk. We're going to talk about it right now. We're not going to wait till we walk up to the coffin. You're going to get how we feel, both good or bad. And it's changed the culture. That's what the driving force was.
Excellent. Before we move to the next question, there's been a couple people ask about viewing the presentation later. This has been recorded. I will send out a link for everybody to view it later, just so you know. Moving on, let's see. What history of continuous improvement does Goodyear have?
I think. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. What history of continuous improvement does Goodyear have?
Goodyear has a strong history embarking on, you look at total quality management. We've done a lot with Kaizen flow, continuous flow of product going through our plant. A little different between Goodyear. It's a cradle-to-grave type product. So you take chemical from the ground, and then you make these raw materials. We make our own raw materials. And our tire machine is kind of like the hub, like a manufacturing assembly line from an automotive industry or some other companies. You buy these parts from a third-party vendor, and then you assemble it. We make our own raw material part, which brings a lot of complexity. And at that point, how to handle that complexity, we need robust lean systems, because by doing so, you have a lot of inventory sitting around and a lot of WIP. So as far as Goodyear, we've done a lot with Six Sigma, conversion diagnostics. I've been in our place, the scientific way of doing things, 5S, TPM. We've got a whole toolbox of tools. But the Goodyear approach has been addressing those behaviors. How do we link them all? And that's where we've had all these tools. And as of late, 2 years or so globally, like I said, Americana and Pola, Germany, with Americana, which won the Shingo Prize, and Lauderdale had the bronze, how we're linking them. And that's the history now. That's where we're at now, and that's the true north.
Okay. What resistance did you meet along the way?
The union wouldn't even participate at first. The union leadership would not come to any of the meetings. It was viewed as a flavor of the month. The initial meeting, it was probably my staff and 4 other people. Okay, and something as simple as you do your first project, you get a T-shirt. And the T-shirt is designed by the people. And then one other thing we do a publisher's clearinghouse at the end of every month. So if you do a project, for instance, we draw out your name, and you get your name in the drawing by doing a project, and then we come out with a publisher's clearinghouse type check, and we give you an award just for participation. It's fun. People love it. But in the beginning, we had little buy-in. Today, because we stayed the course, and there's no rebuttal in this meeting, the rebuttal takes place before you go into the meeting. So to get on the agenda, you would have had to pass a certain criteria. At that point, it's been totally accepted. And it would have been easy to quit at first because it was rough.
Just to clarify a little bit, when we first started the CI celebration that we have twice a week, if we had waited for a suggestion program, we would still be waiting because the culture wasn't there to trust us with their ideas. So what we did to get it off the ground was we spent time on the floor watching what people were doing, talking to the people we knew out there, the CI team. And we found folks who had already done something to make their job, their machine, their product better. And we invited them to let us help them put together a presentation and then present it out. So we actually started the recognition ceremony with completed projects that people had already done that never went through any, clearinghouse for ideas, no suggestion programs. It was done, and it just took us a while to get that mass so we could build some momentum. But we'd still be waiting if we had waited for them to trust us with their ideas through a traditional suggestion program.
And one of the key points, Terry, you said, it's not a suggestion program.
No.
It's work simplification. People come in and have pride in presenting out what they do.
Awesome. Let's see. We probably have time for maybe two more. Did any of the reductions lead directly to a reduction in headcount?
What we did was, you look at the hours worked, drastically came down. And we did not. Attrition took place some of it. So through attrition, we didn't lay people off. What we did was we started to shift in labor. So I'll give you, and the union understood the case for change. We clearly laid it out for them. If you look at our most expensive line item on cost is labor. And at that point, it was to be more efficient. We were not going to lay people off. And so we did things like pre-weighing of chemicals, where a person used to weigh up the chemical, and another person would actually put the rubber compound at the back of a conveyor. What we did was order the chemical pre-weighed. Therefore, only one person needed to be on that unit. The person on the unit was excited. Their job became more efficient, from a safety environment, better housekeeping. And so at that point, the people on the floor came to us and said, we don't need 2 people, just give us the pre-weigh bag. So, and just to give you a magnitude of numbers, there's about 60 people from that point through attrition. They were retiring. We really didn't need that job. So there was a headcount reduction, but it was absorbed through attrition and just through sheer efficiency. And the union didn't have a problem with it.
Excellent. I'm actually going to take two more real quickly. One, I thought this was a good question. How do you measure engagement?
Wow, that's a good question. We look at our surveys. We have the mirror exercise. It's mandatory that you go through the exercise. You walk through it. You don't have to really write or comment down. And then at that point, we write. We as leaders put together what our expectations are, and then we put what we think reality is. And as we get people down, we're measuring basically their input, their feedback, getting them through. It's not a number that says I interviewed 2,800 people. It's I engaged 2,850 people. And you know what? They may not have written anything down, but they got the gist. They got an understanding of the environment. Now, we do have an engagement survey where annually the whole company brings everybody in and interviews everyone. We also have birthday interviews. On your birthday, we bring you in, talk about your performance, talk about the direction of the organization, or KPI. That's one way that most companies measure engagement. But we look at the mindset, and that hidden part that we talked about, walking them through the mirror exercise, bringing them in, getting them engaged, And also, we have a scorecard tracking system that you didn't see up here, and we started with just my staff. And so now, every key leader in this plant is accountable to do one CI project a month. And at that point, we started with 2 people standing up there, and here's my CI team. Now we're reporting out there's 20 CI people. This morning, there were like 6 maintenance techs that came from the floor, and they were excited about it. And then the person says, you know what, I made a commitment. I wouldn't make them talk. And as they stood on the stage, and I asked one question, how did you feel about your engagement in the process? We couldn't shut the person up. I mean, it's that point, getting them up there, getting them involved, that's engagement, and that's how we're measuring it. We got the formal process, but that hidden part that you can't count, we're capturing it through the mirror exercise.
Excellent. Thank you. Last question. Some unions seem to think that lean means plant closure. What message did you think was most powerful to get them on board?
Lean at this point means competitive, being competitive. How do you compete? And I often last week I gave my union president the benchmark report, comparison to best in class. And not only in our footprint, other organizations outside of Goodyear. And it's not about plant closure. It's about being competitive. At some point, it's value. You know, we are a valued organization. Well, we run 38% of Goodyear core products in North America. And at one point, my union president says, our problem is we've got too much complexity. I says, what you think is your weakness is your greatest asset. You must embrace it, and to basically master the art of complexity, it's going to take lean systems, tools, and behaviors to drive this process. So we put the case for change in front of him. I give him indicators that he's never seen before. And he's a business partner now, not an adversary. Now, we have our disagreements. But at the end of the day, his question to me this morning, because we had a bad day on Sunday, Billy, what do we have to do to get this thing back on track? And his suggestion to me was, let's put out a joint letter to the homes. And it was interesting because what we came back, our HR manager says, you know what, we were talking about attendance. And by putting these systems in, we take deep dives, we found out that 16% of that the 2,800 people have perfect attendance. 80% of those people have less than 2% absenteeism, total absenteeism. It's that small window of people that's impacting the whole plant. And we asked them, do you mind if we write a personal letter to their homes? And he says, I don't have a problem with it. And so it's basically giving him the case for change and why should we change and making those tough decisions.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank Billy and Carrie for joining us today. Just an awesome presentation. I want to thank everyone else for attending. I want to make sure to remind you about the Shingo Prize International Conference, April 30th through May 4th. You can register at shingoprize.org/2012 conference. Billy and Carrie, thank you very much. I will send out an email to all registrants making this presentation viewable, and the audio will be part of it as well. Thank you guys very much for attending. Thank everyone else.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. Have a wonderful day.
You too.